Hello and welcome to the Amtgard tutorial in which we cover the construction of an Amtgard Flatblade. Let's jump right into materials. For adhesives you'll need DAP wood weld, half-inch strapping tape, and duct tape or Gorilla Tape. The foam we'll be using is an Ozark Trail camp mat, also known as blue foam, and the core we'll be using is a graphite golf shaft. And as for the tools, you need a ruler, preferably one that can act as a straight edge, a razor blade, scissors, marker, and a paintbrush or similar item to apply the glue. After opening your can of DAP, stir the contact cement thoroughly. To start, measure out the desired blade length and mark it off. Then, mark 3 spaces 1 5/8 inch wide from the edge as shown. And mark it again on the bottom. And finally, mark out your cutting line. Next, we'll cut out the foam pieces. It's important when using a razor blade to use a long ruler as a straight edge and to make multiple passes. It should only take about 2 or 3. Here, we'll trace out the shape of the core onto one of the foam sections, making sure to leave half an inch of space from the tip and cut it out. You may notice a bit of foam and tape over the edge of the core. This is called a biscuit and it's recommended you have it. I forgot to record myself adding it for you. Biscuits reduce the amount of damage a core will do to a stabbing tip. Biscuits don't need to be as bulky as the example shown, but it really helps to have one. Next comes taping the core to the middle section of foam. We'll start by cutting 3-inch strips of half-inch strapping tape. Then we'll apply alternating strips continuously for about 4 inches. Longer weapons will need to have a longer initial section. It's important to note that it is crucial to keep the middle section as straight as possible. Otherwise, you may need to start again. After that, we'll skip about 4 inches before adding 2 more alternating strips of tape, and continue like this until we reach the end of the foam. Remember to keep the foam straight and don't wrap the tape too tight. Now to glue the foam pieces together. Coat one side of each of the uncut foam pieces and both sides of the piece taped to the core with your wood weld. It's important that you apply a thin coat that appears glossy when done. Allow at least 15 minutes to dry before bonding the layers together. It was at this point that I forgot to add a layer of Gorilla Tape to help keep the stabbing tip in check. Normally, I would have added this before gluing. Though it's not absolutely necessary, I used a heat gun to cut drying time down. It can reduce the wait from 15 minutes to 5 minutes, but you have to be careful not to dry unevenly. Either way, the glue will be ready for bonding when it feels tacky to the touch, but doesn't leave a residue on your hands and still has a glossy look. Now bond the pieces together carefully. Make sure the edges are as aligned and smooth as possible for when you glue the seam on later. Add some pressure to make sure the bonding takes well. For the seam, trace along the edge of a roll of camp mat, along the edge of the thin sides and the tip of the blade. Then cut it out. I prefer to use scissors for this, but a razor and straight edge will do. Though not necessary, I like to cut the corners off the tip for a rounder looking stabbing tip. The blade is almost done now. All there's left is gluing on the seam. We've done this before, and the only difference to what we did previously is that at the edge of the blade, we will need a little bit more glue because it's more porous, but not too much more. Too much wood weld will not provide a strong bond. Be careful when you apply the seam, because once the glue starts to bond, it bonds very tightly, and you may tear the foam if you try to remove it. Add some pressure to help the bond take. And there you have a finished Amtgard Legal Flatblade. This build style will last about 3 months of heavy combat before adding a skin of tape to keep the foam from tearing. That's about 3 months longer than a pool noodle sword will last. If you liked the video, comment, rate, and subscribe. Check out the annotations on screen for more Amtgard related content, and we'll see you on the battlefield.